Welcome to the Business Growth Podcast. Today I'm here with Adam, the partner at Black Hill Law. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit more. What do you guys do at Black Hill Law?
Yeah, we've got a growing kind of divided practice. Half of the practice focuses on fund formation for private equity and venture capital companies there. That the main focus there is to help drive investment into businesses, to help them grow through that avenue. The other half is different. The other half is on a fractional in-house legal, kind of a fractional general counsel offering where businesses, small and medium, utilize our services in order to avoid either paying really outrageous prices at large law firms or to really get some experience with someone who's willing to dive deep into their business and to understand more of their business than just an attorney would for a one-off matter. So we've got those two practices that we're growing.
Okay. And then in terms of like the law side, what would you say is like the most typical type of advice that you're giving to your clients?
That's interesting. I'd say the most typical is because our clients are in the high growth area, and growth is the number one focus there. It's usually around how can the company maintain the vision and goals that it has while avoiding pitfalls around compliance and regulatory issues, kind of getting the law out of the way, the corporate law out of the way, and let the business continue to grow, but not run afoul, right? Not do something that would jeopardize what you just got done building.
Yeah. And what would you say, like, once you start working with a new client, what's one of the first things that you guys usually look at to be able to give them the quickest, like, ROI, add the most value to in the quickest time?
Yeah, usually that comes in the form of their contracts. Um, their that changes depending on the business, but there's a lot of risk when it comes to client contracts, employment contracts, vendor contracts. But there's a lot of risk there that people sometimes will go either the very complicated route, and the very complicated route is using an expensive, kind of system and getting a 30-page document, which is a way overkill and it slows down the job, or quite the opposite of that, where they'll just download something they found on the
Mhm.
internet that is 2 or 3 pages and it's fantastic because it goes short, but it really doesn't provide protection to them. So a lot of it is a risk analysis of where they're at as a business and helping them understand, well, you've got a gap here, not a problem, easy to fix, but that's usually kind of the immediate value we can bring is to help them sleep better at night, help the founders sleep better at night.
hmm And then tell me a little bit more. I know from our previous discussion, you said one of the things that you're passionate about is how like a fractional model can benefit these companies who are in high growth. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, you bet. So the fractional model, as I alluded to a little bit earlier, allows someone like me to understand things that other attorneys wouldn't. For example, in a fractional model, you work as a micro employee. So you're not employed, so you don't have those types of, let's say, extra costs as in benefits or retirement, vacation. However, you are centered at the executive level. And so you know the sales motion, you know the pipeline, you know their market fit, and you know what is important to them on a day-to-day basis as a fractional in-house legal. So although, as an example, perhaps there's a business, one of them would want me at their establishment for 10 hours a month. That's fine, right? If you think about that, that's not a lot, but they maximize the time they have with me. And I am there to make sure that the really important things get done. However, I have another client that I'm there 60 hours a month. That's very different. And a 60-hour a month engagement is one in where I'm probably more involved in the operation of the business. So not just handling legal issues, quick legal issues, but I'm actually there to take over things like human resources, auditing, facility management, insurance, just on and on. Things that are not directly tied to delivery of a product, delivery of a service, but are required for a well functioning business. And a lot of
Hmm. And how can like businesses go about deciding what the best fractional business to work with to them? Is there like a framework that you advise them to see if it's going to be a good fit for both of you working together?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'll admit you're the first person that's ever asked me that question. Out of all the times I've talked about a fractional model, it's the first time I've ever been asked that. I would say I would say you're going to know that you should begin the discussion or begin looking for a fractional legal counsel if you find yourself saying way too often, well, let's just hope that goes okay. Let's just hope that everything is fine. If you say that a few times a week, it's probably time to have the conversation. How do you know you found the right one? It's the same kind of discussion around business culture. So I work in various countries. Although I'm American, you can tell from my accent, but I do work in various countries around the world. And that's because I'm able to understand their business culture, how they expect to work, how they expect to be talked to and treated. But I don't think I'm the right fit for every business and every person. So I think you need to address how it is that I engage and how it is I work with you just as much as me for them as well. So I think it's the same kind of analysis as you would for employment, but you're not going to employ
Mm.
the person.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was gathering from what you were saying. It's like, yeah, like you're hiring an employee, but they're just not working full
Right.
time, essentially.
Right. And you don't have that full-time employment burden,
Right,
but you really should think of them and treat them as if they were an employee. It will make the process a
right,
lot more smooth. Yeah.
right. And how about is there any like false beliefs that you find some of your like businesses maybe have when it comes to hiring like a fractional as executive or type role?
Yeah, I would say a false belief is that there isn't the same ROI. There isn't the same return. And what I mean by that is it's very easy to give an attorney at a law firm one problem to deal with, like litigation, as an example. Go and sue that person. It's very straightforward. If I see you moving that lawsuit along, if I see you having success in negotiating that cause of action, I'm seeing the return on what you're doing.
Hmm.
Then sometimes I think people view the fractional model as, well, I am not sure what you're going to be doing every single day. And the interesting thing about that kind of mentality is uh then that means that you're not engaging with your fractional, whether it's fractional CFO, CMO, legal, doesn't matter. You're not engaging with them the correct way. You're not sitting down with them, making goals, making
Hmm.
KPIs, and giving them a clear list of what's important to you. Because if you did do that, which is how I work with my clients, I have lists for each client. Right? Here's the priorities, here's the playbook. If you did that, then you would know immediately what the return is because you would be seeing not only that get done, but also you would know that parts of your business that were perhaps not paid attention to are now being paid attention to.
Yeah, I like the sitting down and looking at what their goals are because I find also often they don't know what they don't know. So it's like if this is your goal, they might not know, okay, these are the things that need to be done to be able to achieve this goal, and they might have blind spots. So working towards like the ultimate goal rather than one
Yeah.
specific thing is, yeah, definitely a really good approach. And then changing topics a little bit, how about so previously one of the other things you mentioned, the competitive advantage of using AI with all of this. Can you tell me a little bit more
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah. I suppose I could divide that thought there a little bit. We could talk strictly legal, but I think what I'd rather do is say the competitive advantage of artificial intelligence is to stop thinking about it as software. It's not software. It isn't just a fancy software. The artificial intelligence is a if you use it correctly, is another voice. It is another intelligence in a seat, virtually, I guess you could say, right, digitally, that will do the work of 100 people at once.
Mhm.
And that is an advantage as a business owner that you can't ignore. You can't ignore that type of success rate. However, what you also should not ignore is that a lot of countries, perhaps not the US as much, although a little bit to a certain extent, but a lot of other countries around the world are increasing their regulation and the severity of that regulation quite a bit. The European Union is a very good example of that. And you need to make sure that if you're going to integrate an agent, an LLM, whatever definition of artificial intelligence works for you, but you need to understand that there are compliance risks, there are compliance needs that can be done. And if you're willing to do the work right now, then you will avoid a lot of cost later on. It'll save you a lot of money later on, but you'll be ahead of your competition because you'll be able to look at your clients and say, not only am I efficient, not only am I profitable, but I use artificial intelligence in a high compliant manner. So you can work with me. You can trust that I'll be doing things ethically, and that's a massive competition differentiator.
Yeah, one of the ways I had people refer to AI is they say it's like having an intern that is just drinking coffee all day and doesn't need to sleep and also doesn't get sick, basically.
Right, right. It doesn't need to stop. Doesn't go on
Yeah,
vacation, right?
yeah,
Doesn't have nights and weekends, things like that. It just works.
yeah,
And that is a that is a very unique thing that we have not been given as a tool in our society ever before. We've never
yeah,
had that.
yeah. It's
And so you can't ignore it, but you need to be legally compliant. You need to be prepared.
mhm. So how can businesses go about making sure they're legally compliant with implementing
Yeah,
all this AI?
I mean, obviously talking to people like me, right, and making sure that you are. But I think there's one layer above that, which is, I for very serious organizations who are going to be implementing this, let's say company wide, or they have quite a large rollout for this, and it's divided into phases. They've got it all planned out. What you really need to do is you really need to bring someone in who can guide you through the right thought process. So, for example, as silly as this may sound, artificial intelligence right now should be treated as raising a child. Children need ethical guidance. They need to know where their boundaries are. Right? I have small children myself, and I feel as though a lot of what I do as a parent is just instill upon them the way in which that I believe they should navigate the
Mm,
world around them. And that's
yeah.
the same thing for an intelligence you are creating within your organization. You need to develop a constitution, a framework, and policies before you implement so that those can be embedded within the agent or the LLM, or like I said, whatever it is that you're developing there. And if you can do that, if you can get a good partner, I'm going to put a little plug in for my friends at Clarion Partners. If you can get a good partner like that who can help you design that framework, not only will the AI be more effective for you because you won't be constantly having to fix or double check or make adjustments to it, but you'll know that you are putting something in your organization that will actually follow what you want it to, that will actually
Mhm.
have an output of what you want it to. That's not a small thing.
Yeah, I really like the analogy. It's like raising a child and then instilling the ethics and everything of how it should behave. It's really good. And how are some ways that you guys have implemented AI into Black Hill Law?
Yeah, so I would say it's nascent right now for us. And I'd say that with being lawyers, it is a tiny bit more complicated because we have customer attorney-client privilege, right? We have, we do have a higher level of ethical standard there when it comes to representation. So we have to be far more thoughtful and nuanced about it than other organizations might have to be. But the way that we use it right now, at least for a lot of the time, is I love to have artificial intelligence kind of argue against me, find holes in my thinking. That is
Yeah.
great. If I'm going to be discussing something with opposing counsel, or if I'm going to be discussing it with a client, kind of a serious or delicate issue, there's nothing wrong with having that kind of intelligence who supposedly thinks a little different, right? Who thinks as if it were multiple people arguing against you. So I do that quite a bit. I can't really give it client data, so there is some limitation there. But I can use it for more basic things, right? Where you're trying to create a document or create a plan. Like I said, and that has really helped quite a bit.
Yeah, I really like that arguing against it and just seeing what someone else would be arguing with, and just I guess getting different
Yeah.
ideas that maybe you didn't even think about.
And really quickly, I'll just tell you, a lot of people don't know this, but you can give certain models a prompt to kind of navigate around their pleasant demeanor. I'm not talking about being rude,
Yeah,
but you can say, for this situation, right?
yeah,
I want you to feel free to say, well, that's dumb, right? That
yeah.
isn't going to work, and it's okay. It's all right, and it does come back with some interesting results.
Yeah, like giving like a personality. Like you could even
Hmm.
do talk like Harvey Specter from Suits would talk,
Yeah,
and then
and
argue
and
against
that's
it.
okay, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
and in this situation, I don't mind if they do,
yeah,
because I need that type of frankness. And there are times I want it to
yeah,
go back and just kind of help me, but
yeah,
yeah, you can do that.
yeah. And what are some of the goals that Black Hill Law is working towards for the rest of the year?
Yeah, 2026 is going to be a year of adjustment, and adjustment still means growth, but I think it's going to be a year of let us let us kind of solidify our offering to our clients. Like we've been talking about, AI has changed things. It has changed things, and it also, in our opinion, it's going to very much disrupt the legal industry in a way that, if you can be forward thinking about it, and if you can be a little bit ahead of the curve, then you will survive. So
Hmm.
2026 is a little bit more about, let's figure out who we want to be, let's adjust to prepare for the next 5 to 10 years. And then the latter half of 2026 will probably be kind of rolling out that kind of new market strategy.
Okay. And do you have much in place already of like what you plan to do for the new marketing strategy?
Yeah, I would say that we're probably going to probably, let me be very careful here. Probably going to divide that into kind of a startup function, a very new startup company function, which will be, pretty cheap to zero depending on the situation. It will be just helping companies not have legal barriers to getting started. Then there will be, probably some other types of flat fee packages, where we're not talking about outrageous billable rates where you get a surprise $30,000 bill at the end of the month. That's not, we're
Hmm.
talking about kind of flat fee, and making it very transparent for, if you're going to choose the silver medallion option, right? You're going to get these things for this amount. And there's a gold option where you can get even more. And a lot of that will have to do with how deep you want us to be involved in your business. Some clients will want to be a lot of governance management. Nobody, manages their board meetings, their resolutions, their minutes, their cap table. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of companies ignore, and we can pick that up. Some will want even deeper. Some will want to help with employment issues, running HR, navigating health and health compliance, AI compliance. That's a much deeper dive. So we're going to develop uh, some very clear offerings that people can choose, and kind of embed ourselves that way.
Nice. Sounds like a whole new offer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. I know we're starting to run out of time here, so how about let's finish on what are some of like the best books that you've read in terms of like business?
Oh yeah. Uh, so I've been recently on having uncomfortable conversations with people
Mm,
and how to better negotiate those. So I have recently read. Geez, you're putting me on the spot. I'd have to look it up
Crucial
right now.
conversations?
Well, no, that is definitely one that I've read a little while ago.
Okay.
But I read one from an FBI negotiator. Wrote
Never
a
split the
book.
difference.
Never
Chris
split the
Voss.
difference. Yeah, that was
That's
a
a good
really
one.
good
Yeah.
one. And although perhaps his situation is not something we would face all the time in our life,
Yeah.
there are a lot of really good lessons there on how to talk to
But yeah.
people. Crucial conversations. That's fantastic.
Hmm.
I would say the Oz principle is a really good one if you're trying to start a business, trying to learn how to be better at the business. That's a fantastic one. And then there's also one that I'm just getting into right now. It's how to use the skills of being a professional poker player can help you in
Uh-huh.
business.
Yeah.
And that's actually really fascinating as well. I don't know anything about professional poker, right, or the mindset or the skills there, but it is fascinating to see how these people utilize that in order to succeed in what they do, and some lessons you can draw there. So
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds pretty interesting. The poker player one. I'll have to check that out.
yeah,
Well, it's been great having you on the show. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about you and what you guys do?
yeah. Please, obviously, I'm on Facebook. Adam Wardell. I'm the only Adam Wardell on Facebook with the way you spell my last name. Also, blackhill.law. You're welcome to find a little bit more about me there. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you taking the time.
No worries. Likewise. Well, I'll include those links in the show notes below. You guys have been listening to the Business Growth Podcast. Until next time, keep growing.